But for you, what defines the identity part of being a stand-up comic?
Really wanting to say slurs no matter what. No, that's a joke.
Stavros, welcome to Bullseye. I'm so happy to have you on the show. It's so nice to meet you.
Good to meet you, Jesse. Thank you for having me.
Did you ever work in a kitchen?
I never worked in a kitchen, no. My mother was a waitress in a Greek restaurant while I was growing up. And my dad was a contractor, but in the Baltimore Greek community, the whole economy is Greek restaurant based. So you either worked for them or you built them or you did the bars for them and the tables for them or you painted the walls for them. And my dad built a lot of Greek restaurants. So I spent a lot of time in my life with my mom or with my dad tangentially in restaurants.
But it was within a world of Greek restaurants. It wasn't because like East Coast diners are often run by Greeks in the same way that like Cambodians run donuts in Southern California.
Right. Yeah, no, a little bit. I mean, yeah, you're right. Greek diner culture runs so deep that my dentist also owned a diner in the same parking lot as where I got my teeth cleaned growing up. So, you know, there were some diners in the mix for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, it was more traditional Greek restaurant, you know, lamb chops, calamari, all that kind of stuff.
I know you worked sometimes with your dad when he was doing contracting work.
Right.
Was that your expectation for your life, or did you always have a plan for something other than that?
No, it wasn't my expectation. In fact, it was my dad's common refrain was, keep up on your grades or you're going to end up like me. You know what I mean? My dad was kind of running a scared straight program in many ways. He was like, listen, hit the books or you're going to be making bookshelves and carrying them up with your fat 11-year-old son. You're going to be carrying them up 4 flights of stairs one day. So it was never the expectation. In fact, as the firstborn immigrant son who I think I was just kind of a lucky, precocious kid who tested well on standardized tests. That's just how my brain worked. But my parents were like, no, you're going to law school. You're our ticket out of this. I never thought I would be a contractor. And by the way, I do not have the gene. I was a horrific carpenter's assistant. I mean, I spent most of my time watching Martin in the break room is what I was doing when I worked with my dad.
Measuring once and cutting twice.
Yeah, exactly. Forgetting to measure, pretending I didn't even buy the wood, that kind of thing.
I want to know about your parents' theater career briefly. Were they doing Greek plays, or were they doing Death of a Salesman in Greek? Were they doing classical plays, contemporary plays?
I think it was contemporary. To be honest with you, I don't know this. Like, these were just sort of like stories my mom would tell me, and it was my dad actually which is really interesting. My dad is a very funny guy. I mean, there's no way around it. He's got that sort of ethnic ball-busting thing, the blue-collar ethnic ball-busting thing, which, you know, was him and all his friends and all the people in these restaurants that my mom worked with was what I based, you know, the character I played in Tony off of. But my dad was just like very funny guy, and I remember hearing that as a kid, that he was the one who had acted, and my mom was just kind of, you know, she was supportive spouse. It was, again, like the restaurants, a cultural thing, right? It was local theater. It was amateur. It wasn't like this big production, but it was a thing that, you know, some of your friends are in the production, the rest of your friends watch the production, and then you go out to these restaurants and eat afterwards. And sometimes they would even bring in like Greek actors from like Greek TV to come visit, the diaspora or whatever, which it was just a very fascinating. When I heard that story, it was just like I couldn't believe that existed. That there was a Greek community that strong and with that direct a link to Greece, because my experience was very different growing up, you know, in the 90s and 2000s. But also that my dad had that in him was like this kind of aha moment in a little ways where you're like, oh yeah, this is not a coincidence. Like my dad just never had. For whatever his weird psychological problems were, they never drove him to get attention in this way. But that's where I get a lot of my sense of humor. And in a different world, I think my dad would definitely be. I do think he likes being funny, he likes, you know, getting attention for it, but not to the maniacal, you know, level his son did anyway.
I mean, but it does kind of give you permission in a way. I mean, you think like, how much of show business in the United States, Broadway, movies, almost everything comes from people with roots in Yiddish theater. Like,
true, yeah.
This is like
stand-up. Stand-up is a complete. It doesn't exist without, the Borscht Belt and the Catskills. 100%.
And for you as a kid, you're surrounded by a world, and it must have been in some way a comfort or exciting to think, oh, within this world even, it is okay to be a creative person. Like, I am allowed to. There's a lane for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I at both felt that way and didn't, right? Like, my parents were very supportive of me as a little kid. Like, I did school plays, and I did an after-school program with the Baltimore School for the Arts in 6th grade, and I auditioned for, Baltimore School for the Arts, which hilariously I decided, I ended up being like, there was a point in 6th grade where I was like, I'm actually a jock. I'm not a theater kid. And the dumbest thing of all time. Clearly, I could not have been proven more wrong over time. But I remember thinking, it was this very interesting thing, because I think in their heart, even my dad did like to see me do these plays. And even I went to Greek school after school 3 times a week. And there was one time where I adapted a story from it and kind of directed a stage play and told my classmates, and it was and we put it on at the church. And I think both my parents had a lot of pride in that, but it was one of those things where it's like, okay, it's good that you did that, but let's not forget, you're also our meal ticket out of debt. So let's stop with that childish stuff now. No more, and maybe you can do it like I did as a hobby as an adult, but when push comes to shove and it's time to actually live your life, you can't do that, right? But we do support you, and we're happy, and so they're sending me mixed signals. It was like, and that's how I felt too. Emotionally, I knew from when I was in like 4th grade what I wanted to do, but intellectually, I always told people, no, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm just going to do. Because it's either lawyer or doctor as immigrants. It's so hack where it's like lawyer or doctor. If you're good at math, you're a doctor. If you're good at talking, you're a lawyer, right? It was as simple as that. So I did have this very schizophrenic thing where emotionally it just felt so right that I should do something creative. But the expectations from my family were that, well, obviously, the intellectual expectations were obviously you're not going to do that as a job. That's just a little fun thing to do every once in a while.
Did you have, when you read the script for Tony, did you see any reflection of anything about your young self in this story about young Anthony Bourdain?
Well, I don't know if I read the script ever. I don't think
fair.
I think I had a call with Matt Johnson, and I knew him a little bit, but not much. And I think he was doing the rewrite, and he was like, hey, I realize this thing needs I need a guy to bully Dominic Sessa. Do you think you can do that? And I was like, I'm on the first flight, bro. Don't give me no more talking. I'm signing on the dotted line. And he literally wrote the character kind of with me in mind, and a lot of what I did was improvisational. And I don't think because I just saw the movie, and it was awesome. It was the first time I've been in a movie where I got to enjoy it, because all my stuff was like in the kitchen. And I got to see this movie, and it's really good, by the way. Tony's awesome. I say check it out. But I do, after seeing the movie and knowing what the story is now, what I really relate to is this summer for Bourdain was like, he's 19, and he gets in the kitchen, and instantly his life kind of comes into focus. And I definitely had that feeling when I started doing stand-up. It's almost like, it's kind of like embarrassing and corny to be like, I found myself through stand-up comedy. Like, that's my main identity, truly, if I really had to think about it, I think is stand-up comedian. And there was just I was a really anxious kid, because achievement to me and getting good grades was all about adulation. It was not about doing anything for even getting good grades and getting a scholarship into college. That was all because I wanted my mom to tell me, good job, and I wanted people to be proud of me. But I really didn't care about any of that. When I did my first open mic at a seafood restaurant on Route 1 in College Park, Maryland, I was like, holy, this is awesome. This is what I want to do. And I had real problems sleeping as a kid. And it was like night and day. When I graduated from college and I was like, I'm going to do stand-up full-time, I slept like a baby for like 4 years. It was like I had a singular purpose in my life, and that was just get good at stand-up. Nothing else matters. And I mean, truly, I think those were the happiest years of my life, feeling like I was getting good at stand-up and feeling engaged in something. And it really did completely change my perspective on things and made me understand, like, oh yeah, that was the first time I enjoyed learning. I loved the feeling of getting better at something, at a craft that you care about. And I really related to that in terms of, I mean, there's before Bourdain works in a kitchen, and then there's the rest of his life. And for me, there's before I did stand-up, and there's the rest of my life, for sure.
What do you think it means to identify first and foremost as a stand-up comic? I mean, like, there's a lot of story in the world, a lot of meta-narrative in the world about sad clowns, right?
Right.
My experience knowing a lot of stand-up comics, being friends with a lot of stand-up comics, is that I don't know that they are more sad than other people who perform for a living, although probably people who perform for a living might be more sad on average than the average person who gets their satisfaction from CPAing.
Right.
Rather than the approval of others.
Of course.
Like getting the math problem right is a little more consistent thing to seek. But for you, what defines the identity part of being a stand-up comic?
Really wanting to say slurs no matter what. No, that's a joke about half the industry right now. But
I've seen these comics.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I just, there is a little bit of that, right? There's a little bit about kind of that corny, sad clown. But even that, it was more, that was what I thought it was going to be like. But for me, it really was just, it's hard to say. I just, that's what's important to me. All I ever wanted to do was be funny and be funny in a way that, just be as funny as I could and learn how to do that. And what it means to identify is that, I mean, for years, just nothing was as important, and probably to my detriment. Like, I really, I think I've done a really good job. I mean, I'm 37 now. I'm almost been doing stand-up as long as I was alive before I started doing stand-up. I mean, what's the math real fast? 18 years? Yeah, next year's the year where it's like just as the same amount of time. And I think for a decade, I got I think I got pretty good at stand-up, but everything else kind of took a back seat. You know, my personal life, my health, my relationship to my loved ones. It was like I had a really single-minded purpose. And I will say that that did make me happy. I mean, maybe that's dysfunctional. I don't know what. But that's what it was for me. It was just like nothing else mattered. And again, I don't think that's healthy globally, like overall for me. But I think it was what I needed when I was in my 20s and kind of didn't know what I wanted to do and felt a lot of pressure from my family that I didn't think I could fulfill what they wanted from me. And I didn't want the flip side of the immigrant narrative is that, you don't want, there was a lot of like, classic immigrant guilt stuff where it's like your parents sacrificed everything for you. And as grateful as I am, a lesson I learned was like, I mean, it was tough on my dad and I knew he was not having a good time. And I guess I just didn't want anything to be a burden to me. I mean, look, I don't think he meant to do it, but when you're a little kid and you see how tough something is, I felt like a burden to my dad in certain ways. And I felt like an obligation in certain ways. And I think why stand-up was it was such a solitary thing. It's just you. No one can, you're on the road. You almost can't form connections that later become obligations, that start with love and then later become these obligations that are like a millstone around your neck, which is what I felt like as a kid sometimes. And I think that's why just my psychology, and obviously that's not healthy and I'm working on that stuff now, but I think that's why I took to it. It was this thing where no one could pin me down and I could at once just kind of get better at the things that I naturally was good at, right? Like I was a class clown. I did I loved creative writing when I was a little kid. These were the things that I could, and even in school, my subjects were history, English, that kind of stuff. And I think that's what it meant for me. It was just like I got to be completely on my own, worry just about myself in a way that wasn't healthy then. But I think, now things are going good and the clock's ticking, and I'm trying to sort of cobble together a regular life now with the tail end of any youth left that I have. I'm wringing it out. It's like just get a couple drops.
Sometimes I feel like comics I know who spent let's say their 20s or sometimes their late teens and 20s doing road work rather than, being in Boston or San Francisco or one of these places where you can do a lot of shows as a new comic locally. Like these roadwork comics, it's like either they watched every movie that was in theaters or became an addict.
Right. Well, I picked. It was the latter for me. I mean, it wasn't not too bad. I mean, honestly, I'm lucky that food. I mean, I've done it pretty much every drug, but none of them really took hold like food. But I was definitely the road is like, but it's fun. Here's the thing: when you're 21, it's really fun to be opening for somebody and to just get up every night. That's awesome. That's what you want to do when you're that age. So it didn't really become a problem until probably my 30s. But yeah, that decade was nice. And now I'm actually catching up on movies because I definitely leaned into my vices and was not into culture very much.
There was a strain of comedy, especially in New York, from the broadly mid 90s to 2010-ish. And it was represented by a bunch of, including some of the most universally respected stand-up comics there are. I mean, Dave Attell and Colin Quinn and these people that...
The tough crowd. You talk about the tough crowd guys.
Yeah. And in the years after Tough Crowd, that became something else. A lot of it headed towards Opie and Anthony. And some of it got really nasty and poisonous.
Right, for sure.
Not everybody. I mean, like Colin Quinn's out here doing an hour about history or whatever.
The history of elevators in New York City or some like that.
And it's great. It's amazing.
It's
you
incredible.
Watch it, you're like, Colin Quinn, what a
everyone.
genius.
Yeah. Truly.
But anyway, some of that stuff got real poisonous, like really gross. And... a few years ago, my friend Guy Branum wrote this piece that was in the New York Times that was about the comics table at a club in New York City and how when he had sat there, he felt like SH. Like it was a horrible experience for him. When he was told this story of, well, comics just, bust each other's balls, he said, well, my experience was that I felt like I was hated and treated like garbage because I was different from those dudes. And I'm not asking you this because I'm like, why are you so poisonous and like this? That all played out over the course of your early years in stand-up. When you were learning to do stand-up, that was a lot of veteran comics, especially in the Northeast. Certainly, especially in New York, and not everybody, but like it was a big thing. It was a movement,
Sure.
What was your perspective on it then, and what is it like now?
Then I had no I mean, then I just felt like it didn't matter to me what the climate was. I was singularly focused at that time in my life at being as good as possible at stand-up comedy. And yes, in the back of my head, I wanted to be at that table, right? Like I want, and again, I think it might not be healthy, but my view on it was, in the grand scheme of things, like from a policy perspective, let's say, I do think stand-up should be more welcoming, more inclusive, that we should, that it should, if we were legislating it as a workplace. But from a micro perspective, I wanted it to be as hard on me as possible so I could get as good as possible. Like, to me, there's a difference between people who, discrimination, being just plain mean is, of course, that's no way to run a workplace, right? But I just thought, you can't, it's like, it is like, all that matters is getting good. And you are going to, if it's not people being rude to you at a club. There's going to be, I mean, we're talking about wanting to be in entertainment. This isn't fair. This is like, we're not talking about, being in the bureau, working for the government. We're not talking about getting a job for even like a big corporation. Like, there are no rules here. What matters is getting good and being so funny. You don't let these people hurt your feelings, even though I understand if they do, right? Like, again, that's why I say there's a difference between the micro and the macro. In the macro, I don't think that's right. But for me, I wanted to just be funny enough to survive any situation. And that was something artistically that was very important to me. I would always do. I was one of those people that I did alt rooms. I did the weirdest alt rooms you can imagine, right? I opened for Wham City Comedy, these really out there artists in Baltimore. One of my best friends to this day, Ben O'Brien, we still work together. They directed my special, executive producer on all my stuff.
Shout out to friend of Bullseye with Jesse Thorn, Dan Deacon, or one of the Wham City
Dan Deacon, my boy Dan, absolutely. So that scene, I open for like guys who are one step removed from crust punks, right? And then at the same time, I'm at Magooby's Joke House in Timonium, Maryland, in the burbs, and I'm watching Nick DiPaolo do stand up, and I'm learning from him. You know what I mean?
It's called Magooby's Joke House?
It's literally called Magooby's Joke House. And I am the... No,
Move
I am
over,
the 2012...
Rooster T. Feathers. There's a new comedy club name.
Yes, exactly. So that was my at-the-time perspective on it, right? And now, how has it changed? Honestly, I'm kind of worried that stand-up culture in general is sort of gone, like real culture, real community. Because also part of that is like... Look, I don't remember the specifics of this particular situation with Guy Branum, who is very funny, but I think some of that is probably like, you're from LA, dude. Like, you're not from here, right? Like, you're not going to be just welcomed at just speaking generally. If you're a comic who's not from here, and it's the same when a New York comic comes to LA, there's stuff to learn. And I think maybe that was a slight negative part, but the good part of that is that there was real community. There was real looking out for us, for New York comics. And yes, there is a strain of thinking within New York that I do subscribe to where it's like, we're the best comics in the world. Like, it is hard to come here. You can't just show up and get accepted if you're not killing or, whatever, right? I'm scared right now that stand-up comedy culture has kind of disappeared, right? Grassroots. It's kind of what's happening in America overall, where everybody is atomized, there is less community in general, and I think it has sort of unfortunately hit stand-up where, because so much of getting a career happens on the internet, it's even more individualized than it is just doing stand-up. Because yes, your art happens by yourself, but some of my best friends were people that I did open mics with, right? These are people who, when I first got passed at the Stand or the Cellar, the people that I'm hanging out at that table because we're on the bad shows, because all the good comics got to go on the choice stuff, and now the young comics who are just okay, we're all hanging out together and we're coming up together, and we're tagging each other's jokes and helping each other get better. And my perspective now on it is I'm just scared that that's evaporating generally. When I first moved to New York, there were great shows, independent shows every night of the week. Everything now is like everything, and I love the comedy clubs here. Obviously, they're the best in the world, but I would like it if there were more subcultures to beef with each other, because that means it's vibrant and there's a bunch of different philosophies, and maybe there will be some arguing or there will be some hurt feelings, but at least people cared. A lot of people cared in a lot of different ways, and I am a little scared. I'm getting into the old man yells at cloud era of my life, where I'm like, these kids today, they're doing too many TikToks and they're not doing enough open mics, and I actually believe that.
I think there is a world of stand-up comedy right now that is mostly straight dudes who didn't like being scolded for being jerks.
Right.
And saying, if you're going to scold me for being a jerk, you won't believe what a jerk I can be.
Yeah, sure.
And that also, there is a corollary to that that's sometimes intermingled of comics who are making media, not just stand-up, but podcasts and other things, that is proudly predicated on them being know-nothings.
Mm-hmm.
where they're like, you think I'm dumb? You won't believe how dumb I can be. I don't know anything. I'm going to ask, I'm going to talk while someone else looks it up for me.
Sure.
Then read it off a screen and either believe it or not believe it based on vibes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It freaks me out. That's my old man in cloud. It freaks me. It freaks me out.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I practice so much. I like read so much to prepare for my show. You know?
Yeah, that's again big mistake. I think if culture has showed us anything, it's preparation and knowing what you're talking about is a big problem. Yeah, I mean, it is weird. I mean, I think all this stuff would be fine if it wasn't the most successful. I don't understand how the only industry that makes money in America is podcast or stand-up. I don't understand how that's the most I mean, nothing else. If you look at the margins, nothing else is a better bet financially.
It's a low-cost touring business. You know, people.
One guy and a microphone.
Few and few people subscribe to newspapers or whatever, but more and more people will buy tickets that are more and more expensive to things. And if you're just one person on the road, you get to keep all the money.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you said that's to me the real important thing is like fewer people are subscribing to newspapers. And look, I understand. I mean, I don't like I don't like a lot of the stand-up that's being produced, and maybe I do think the quality of some of the highest level of stand-up is not. We're sort of in a, you know how they talk in boxing, like a who's got the belt, whether it was a strong belt or a weak belt. Right now, I think there's some incredible stand-up. There's a handful of incredible stand-up comics out there, but I don't. And what I strive to do is I'm trying in my own work. I mean, I have a special coming out September 8th on Netflix, Uncle Stav. I worked on it for 3 years, and I tried really hard to get the joke to have very layered joke writing, to have a very dense hour of material, because I think it's our job to try and put out the best stuff possible. And I think podcasting has zapped some of that creative juice. I mean, there's no way talking for, an average of 9 hours a week or whatever. I mean, I put out I put out 2 podcasts a week. That's 3 hours. I've been doing that. I've been doing 2 podcasts a week since I was 25 years old or 26 years old. There's no way that hasn't zapped some of what could have gone into my stand-up. There's just no way, right? If stand-ups in the past, all they did was stand-up. And I think that was better for the art form. And now we're trying to figure out some kind of like, we're dealing with the fallout of that a little bit from an artistic standpoint. And also, it's not our fault that we're in an anti-intellectual society. It's not our fault that we are dumb, funny guys. They shouldn't give us the megaphone. It's not my, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not giving the money back. I wish there were journalists. I wish people gave a about real journalism, but they don't. And what am I supposed to do? You know what I mean?
I'm not buying this I'm dumb act from you.
I'm pretty dumb. I mean, I'm just saying in my stand-up in general, people are dumb. I don't think it's good that stand-ups have become somehow the most listened to cultural figures in America. That is a bad thing. I will say that.
Okay, I'll buy that. I just don't want to hear this. Remember when Jon Stewart was talking about how he's not the real journalist, journalists are the real journalists, and so he's just doing comedy, so he should be off the hook?
Sure.
And including with him, a brilliant guy, a really super funny guy, etc. Even then, I was like, yeah, but I mean, it doesn't let you off the hook.
Sure, it doesn't let you off the hook. No, just the fact that you get... no, it doesn't let you off the hook. But also, I mean, he was also doing The Daily Show. I'm doing Stavi's World. You know what I mean? He is interviewing the vice president or whatever. I'm interviewing, my pals at Are You Garbage. Me and a couple of Philly guys are talking about what's the best hot sandwich at Wawa. It's a little different.
What is the best hot sandwich at Wawa?
I mean, honestly, they do make a pretty good cheesesteak. It's sacrilege to eat the cheesesteak at a Philly gas station, but they know what they're doing. And the meatball sub's pretty good. And if you're trying to go paleo, they'll put the meatballs in a cup for you.
That's nice. Like ice cream if you don't like cones.
Exactly right. If you want to skip the sugar cone.
People who are listening to this, who are familiar with your work, are familiar with your work. Those who aren't, I hope that they understand that you're a smart, funny guy and have a sense of what a hardworking, smart, funny guy you are from our conversation. Like what a dedicated artist you are. You in your career have had some remarkable confluences of like your skills and gifts and what is happening in the media world.
Absolutely. I'm very lucky.
One is that you were for years on a podcast that we'll have to bleep for the name of for the air because it's sexual or excretory. In fact, it is both sexual and excretory. But like you were one of the hosts of a super popular podcast called Town when there was a real hunger for the kind of show that you did. And I don't think that you guys started that show because you were reverse engineering it from that hunger. I think it was, look at this, it dovetails. You were doing a lot of crowd work on video and were really good at it at a time when crowd work exploded on social media.
Yep.
And not insignificantly, in that little Instagram or YouTube Shorts or TikTok window, you have a thing that reads instantly. Like our radio audience can't see I read them described in a major national publication as Jeffrey Dahmer eyeglasses.
Which one?
The ones you're wearing right now are red, so they're the fun version.
Yeah.
But you know, you're 5'7", your weight tends to be in the high 200s. You
coming
are
a fresh 285 today. 275.
Congratulations, that's awesome.
Thank you.
I know that's hard work. And you're bald with long hair.
That's right.
You have a little
Skullet.
mustache. Like I'm describing these things obviously because radio people can't see you. But what are the positives and negatives of looking like a thing so readily and then having to deal with that in your art?
This was never like, oh, it'll be good branding for me to look like this, right? I used to shave my head. You know, I went bald I tried to get ahead of it in college. I was like a kid. I was like 20 doing a buzz cut, being like, well, this is my choice. I'm choosing to have a buzz cut. I'm not bald, right? And then until it was obvious it wasn't my choice. And then I was rocking the Jesse Thorn for a while, just skin, you know what I mean? There's no guard, zero on the clippers. I started growing out my hair as a joke during the pandemic when everybody lost their minds, right? I thought it would be funny, and then I was like, "Oh, hold on a second. This is nice, dude. I like how this looks. I like how this feels." And it's part of a larger thing of, I don't know, I kind of like the challenge of having to immediately subvert expectations. Like you see me and I look like a scumbag. I just do, right? I look like a pornographer, and you know, selling it out of his you know, El Camino or whatever. And I sort of like I just like the challenge of what that comes with. Sometimes it gets a little annoying, you know, whatever. People, I do think some people won't shake that, but I like my appearance being, I mean, my whole life is comedy. My appearance is kind of a joke, if I'm being honest. I think it's funny to look like this and become mainstream successful. I never thought this would happen. I never thought they'd put me in movies. And so to me now it's like, well, how dumb can I look and how much fun can I have with it? And what's the next move? You know, I've been thinking about getting in the toupee era of my life. I've been thinking about mixing it up that way, maybe bleaching the skullet blonde, having a nice blonde, bald ponytail. Who knows? Who knows what the future holds, Jesse? But I just see it as part of, it's just a fun thing to play with, just like everything else. I try to take nothing seriously, including my appearance. And I also take it as I take a perverse pride in looking as on paper ugly as possible and still overcoming with just charisma, right? Like I almost see the way I look as like, you know, when someone's on the on deck circle and they got those like weights on the bat, and like I feel like I live my life with the weights on the bat. You know, it's like, and life is only going to put more weights on your bat, so get ready for them. And that's kind of how I look at it. It's like, you know, it's fun. I'm having a great time, and I take a lot of pride in knowing that you put a lot of people in this body, and their life's bad. Right, but like I've figured out how to be in a movie with that. I'm co-workers with Antonio Banderas looking like this, dude.
Well, Stavros, I'm really grateful for your time. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
Of course, Jesse. Thank you for having me.